And it's 1 o'clock. Perfect timing. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second Saturday seminar series. I'm Susan Jones here at the Animas Museum, along with Bev Rich of the San Juan County, Colorado Historical Society. Some of you might know, we don't have a lot of snow here this year in Durango, so we're really thrilled that Bev is here in person with us today. Although I hear it was snowing up there. Despite the best laid plans. And I want to thank Casey Carroll for driving down today and bringing Bev here. If you don't know Bev, you should, because she's been the driving force behind the San Juan County Historical Society for years and has just so many great stories to tell. She's a killer grant writer and has been so crucial in many of the preservation projects in San Juan County that have all come together to preserve the story of the mining and the railroads that made Silverton and the San Juans what they are today. So she's going to talk about one of those incredible projects. And before we jump in, let me just really quickly go over some Zoom housekeeping. We're using Zoom's webinar feature, which means you're all muted and your videos are off. But at the bottom of your screen, and you might need to mouse down a little to see it, there are a couple icons. To minimize distractions, we've disabled the chat function. So if you have an immediate issue or question, please click on the Q&A icon and we'll be monitoring that. And we ask that you hold your questions to the end of the talk, and at the end, we'll open up and ask for questions. So you can either type them into the Q&A at that time, and I'll read them for Bev, or you can click the little hand and raise your hand, and we'll allow you to unmute and ask your question at that point. If you're in the classroom today, please hold your questions, because once we answer all the questions online, we'll shut down the Zoom and come downstairs and say hello in person and answer any other questions that you might have. And if any good questions and discussions come up, we'll post those in the show notes that you can check out later on, so nobody will miss anything. Now, this session is being recorded, and you will receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the recording and any links of things that we talk about here or references that you might be interested in. With that, are we ready, Bev?
I'm
Let's
ready.
go.
Okay. Well, thank you, Susan, and thank you, La Plata County Historical Society, for asking us to come down to give a program about something that you might find interesting for a historical society to be involved with, and that is that the Historical Society installed a little micro hydro uh, uh, plant up at the Mayflower Mill, and are using it at the present time to provide power for the mill and to sell back to San Miguel Power, which is our power company. And at this point, we make about $1,300 a year, and that pays for a lot of the electricity for what the Historical Society uses, including the as you see the slide on the screen, you'll see that's the picture of our jail, a 1902 jail, our archive building, and in back of it, you'll see the Mining Heritage Center. And at the present time, the museum isn't open because it's so doggone cold in there. And just to let you know, yesterday in Silverton, it was 12 below zero. So, yeah, but the archive is open year round, normally during the middle of the week, but always on Thursdays. So if you need to do some research, we are open to you. So you might wonder, how did the little historical society, San Juan County Historical Society, get involved with hydropower? Well, in 1991, the Sunnyside Mine, the great Sunnyside Mine, which worked almost continuously for 130 years, was one of the greatest gold mines in the state of Colorado, shut down. And one of the things that they had to do was reclaim all of the property that they owned and worked on. And one of those pieces of property was the historic Mayflower Mill. And it is interesting to know that there just aren't any mills of that era. It was built in 1929 and used until 1991, and it is a National Historic Landmark. It was made a National Historic Landmark in the year 2000. It is considered very, very important industrial site in the whole United States. There are 23 National Historic Landmarks in the state of Colorado. There are fewer than 2,500 in the whole United States. So it's an important person. But part of the Sunnyside Gold's bond required that they tear the mill down. And being a mining town history, and so many people in our town had worked for generations at the Sunnyside, the Historical Society decided, we don't want you to tear down the mill. We want to save that mill. That's part of our history. And so that's interesting, but it was something that we had to do a lot of research in. Number one, we had to tell if a little tiny historical society could take on the care of a huge complex and made of several buildings, including an assay office and the mill part itself. And we had to see if we could take on a possible hazardous waste site, because the milling process used chemicals, reagents to, after the rock was crushed up to get the gold and the silver and the lead and the zinc and the copper out. It's fascinating to go through and see this mill. And but we had to decide whether we were able to take on a project so big. And it took us 5 years. We hired one of the best water law companies in the country. They worked pro bono. They did all of the research for us. Sunnyside Gold was very forthcoming. They let us look at all of their books, all of their reports, all of their papers, all of their maps. And the other thing that happened is that Sunnyside had to amend their permit. And that was not just a state permit, it was also a federal permit. And they did it, and it cost them a lot of money, and we didn't have to help them. They were able to do it. So anyway, that is number one, how we got the mill. And number two was that when Sunnyside gave us the mill, they also gave us the water rights that they owned out of Arastra Creek. And Arastra Creek, for those who don't know, is right across the road from the Mayflower Mill. And so there we were. We had to figure out what were we going to do with water rights. We all know that once you get water rights, you better use them, or you will lose them. And so that was one of the reasons that we got into the hydroelectric business. But first, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the history of hydropower in the San Juan Mountains. So this is the Ames Hydroelectric Plant, which happens to be close to Ophir and pretty close to Telluride. It was built in 1891. It was the first commercial system to produce and transmit alternating current, AC current electricity. This is the very first hydroelectric plant that ever was produced energy in the entire world. It was before New York City, it was before London, it was before Paris, it was before anywhere. This is where alternating hydroelectric power was uh, operating in the world. And I think that's very interesting. It was started because the Gold King mine, which is above Telluride, needed to run a stamp mill, and they were running out of coal. It was very expensive to get coal up there. They were running out of trees. They had used up all the trees to provide power. So the Gold King's major stockholder was a man named Lucian L. Nunn. And he had a brother, Paul, who was an engineer, an electrical engineer on the East Coast. And Paul said, well, let's maybe look at and talk to a company called Westinghouse Electric Company and see if they can help us come up with a better power source. And so they did. And in Westinghouse used a new type of motor developed from patents that had been licensed from inventor and scientist Nikola Tesla. And also during this time, there was a fierce competition between Westinghouse and Thomas Edison's company, the Edison Electric Company. Edison was very much more wanted to do direct current rather than alternating current. But direct current didn't go nearly as far, or not even close to as far, as alternating current. So there have been lots of books written about that. So I'll let you read those to tell you more, to let you know more about that very interesting piece of history. But it happened here. So, and shortly thereafter, we had Tacoma, the electrical plant that is 32 miles north of Durango. It's also a plant that is only accessible by the railroad. Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad is the only way that you can get to it. And it used water from Cascade Creek and ran it through Pelton wheels and dumped it right back into the Animas River. And it is what is really, I think, very interesting about Tacoma is if you visit the inside, there are switches, huge switches on the walls in there. And one of the switches has a brass plaque right over it that says Silverton. And what is, I think, really neat about this whole thing is that Silverton and Durango and Ouray and Telluride still get a lot of their power both from Ames and Tacoma. So this is something that lasts for a long time. And I think that's a beautiful picture of Tacoma. And just so that you know, Durango was very much into alternating current hydropower also. And in 1892, the Durango Light and Power Company decided to embrace the technology known as AC power. It powered Durango lights and electricity throughout the whole town, which was very much smaller than it is now. And it became a part of the Western Colorado power grid. It was made useful for a long time after a lot of power plants folded, and is now the Powerhouse Science Center. It's a museum that is just down the street a ways from us. And so, and one of the things that's really interesting about it is its architecture, which is mission style. And that was very rare in this part of the country at that time. But it wasn't just, it was also Silverton that was involved in getting hydropower going. And so another slide. So we had several hydropower plants, little hydropower plants. One of them was built by Ed Stoiber, who was the owner of the Silver Lake mine, and he installed a 300 kilowatt hydropower plant to send hydroelectricity generated from the Animas River up to the Silver Lake mine. And I don't know whether you know where that is. It's about 2 miles north of Silverton, and then about 3 miles right straight up. And it still runs. The other picture that I like you to see is part of the property that Sunnyside Gold gave the Historical Society. Was a piece of property that was owned by Western Colorado Power Company in its early stages. It was bought by Sunnyside Gold and used as office space and mining space, and where they would keep rocks and stuff that they assayed and that sort of thing. So right now, the Historical Society owns that building, and we have rehabilitated it, and now we have rented out it. We have it rented out to a bunch of artists and musicians, and they are making quite a good use of that piece of property. And it is we have put a new roof on it and all kinds of things. So it's really a nice piece of property. So so you get the idea that so here we have these little power plants. We can go to the next one. So we get all of these little power plants, but how did they get the power from the power plant to the mine up in Silverton, or to the Gold King mine over in Telluride? How did they get that power out? Well, they hired a bunch of people, planted a bunch of power poles and strung wire, and brought it over those really extremely tough terrain. And one of the things that I like to bring up is there is a book out by a lady named Esther Greenfield. It's called Tough Men in Hard Places. And it was a book that tells you how Western Colorado Power Company expanded its grid and how hard that was. And it was Western Colorado Power Company was formed in 1913. But it's a wonderful book that she compiled from a wonderful collection from the Western Colorado Power Company that resides up at the Center of Southwest Studies up at Fort Lewis now. And it's let you know that didn't just happen overnight. There were a lot of people that worked on that. So next. And one of the things that I did want you to see, and it's an exhibit at the museum up in Silverton, our Mining Heritage Center, and most people don't know what it is, but it's a pole wagon. And what it was you would use this wagon and you put all your poles in, the company would, and it was Western Colorado Power Company that hired these guys. And they'd take it out into the mountains, being pulled by mules, and stop, and they'd get the poles down and dig the hole and get the poles stuck in them and tethered to the ground. And once they got done, this wagon could be scrunched up so that it was a lot easier to take it down the hill than it was to try to take it up the hill. So it's a wonderful piece of equipment that was used to string all of those wires up in the high country around the whole San Juan area. So anyway, San Juan County was once a major gold and silver mining area. It had 4 railroads, not just the Durango and Silverton, but the Silverton Railroad, the Silverton and Northern, and the Silverton, Gladstone, and Northerly, and had 3 smelters at one time. Smelters didn't work that well up in the high country because of the temperature is not warm enough to heat up the ore to smelt it. And it was very, very interesting, I think, to note that with 4 railroads and 3 smelters and every other building in Silverton using coal for heat and energy, Silverton was about the dirtiest little town you would ever see. And I have actually seen pictures of Durango when the smelter, the Kendrick Gelder smelter, was moved from Silverton to Smelter Mountain of Durango being so cloudy that you couldn't even see the whole town. So, but that meant that you were wealthy. That meant that you were rich. So anyway, Sunnyside Gold was, they ended their mining in San Juan County and implemented their $10.5 million reclamation plan. And that is when we went to them and said that we wanted them to give us that mill. And they did. The mill was built in 1929 and it worked until 1991. The milling process used a lot of water to carry concentrates and tailings and all of that sort of thing. It was the way that they moved the ore after it was crushed up. And they, one of the things that they did when they donated the mill to us was to donate the water rights that they owned in Arrastra Creek. And as all of you know, if you have water rights, you better use them or you lose them. So along with that property, Sunnyside also donated about 22 acres of flat land, which in San Juan County is fairly valuable because we don't have a lot of flat land. And it was called the Powerhouse property. It's on the Jeanette Rue Placer. And 2 of the structures that are on it were brick electric substation, which you saw a picture of, and a mule barn. And all of this property was added to the Silverton National Historic Landmark District in 2000. And it's very important. So what were we going to do with this big bunch of property? The Historical Society decided to make it into a business park. And so in 2002, we got funding or applied for grant money from the U.S. Economic Development Administration. They gave us about $800,000 to develop this business park, which is about 11 acres. We subdivided it into lots and built infrastructure. The water, sewer, electric was all put in by us. And then we were able to, and we also restored the substation and sold the mule barn to a man who is fixing it up right now, which is wonderful. It's a great building. And it was done to, you have to remember this, the mine had just shut down. People were leaving Silverton. We were trying to figure out what we were going to become. Were we still going to survive? And so one of the reasons that we decided to do this project was so that we could retain jobs, we could attract jobs, and make it into an industrial park that was really good for businesses that usually are not good for in town, stinky, loud, noisy businesses with large equipment and that sort of thing. And so that's what we did. It's a business park, and it has been a real success, both for the Historical Society, because we were able to sell off certain of these lots and do other projects. And it was really good for the town because we were able to attract companies into Silverton, including Scotty Bob Skis. And so it's been a good thing for Silverton. Anyway, and we also had to provide water to this business park. And so we had water coming down through a pipe from Arrastra Creek. And so we built pipeline from below the mill down to this, about a mile, to this business park, so that we could start using up that water, using the rights of that water. So that was a good thing. The other thing is that the board of directors knew that we needed to use that water or we would lose the rights to it. So we decided to get in touch with some folks to see if maybe there was a way that we could build a little hydro plant, something that had been in the history of San Juan County and the San Juan Mountains for years. And it was very interesting because we were able to get a grant from the Colorado State Historical Society. It was actually from the Colorado State Historical Fund, which the Historical Society manages and gives out. And it was called their very first sustainability grant. And it was matched by Gates Foundation, Gates Family Foundation, and also the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, and Bacon Foundation out of Grand Junction were some of our funders. And we were able to, one of the things that we had to do was to replace part of our pipeline, which had been installed in 1929. A lot of it had been fixed up during the years that the mill was open, but there were still holes in the pipes, and the intake was covered up with rocks and trees where avalanches had fallen on it. Next, I think. And we ended up, I'm showing a picture of the map that showed the location of the pipeline and the intake. It's going from just about Timberline up Arrastra Gulch down to the Mayflower Mill. And the project included replacing the intake and replacing about a mile of that pipe. And that mile, the pipe is about 2 miles long that goes over to the mill. And so that was really a wonderful way to, number one, fix our pipeline, and number two, to use our water rights. But that was really great until we happened to, it was very successful until we started the permitting process from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, F-E-R-C. And come to find out that we had to fill out a permit that was about 500 pages long. And it was a permit that you would have to fill out if you were building a brand new Hoover Dam. And it was just like, this is incredible, and we can't do it. Number one, we don't have the expertise, and we don't have the money to hire somebody who does have the expertise to do this. And so here we have this little plant, but we couldn't get a permit to start it. So what we decided to do was, what we decided to do was to go to get the law changed. And so our little power plant was the poster child of to get legislation through the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate and the state of Colorado House to change the permitting process for small hydro. And a bill was introduced in the House. It was called the Hydropower Regulatory Efficiency Act. The bill's main focus was to clear up much of the red tape associated with permitting small hydroelectric power projects, mainly those generating less than 5 megawatts of electricity. And it passed the House 422 to 0. And that was a period of time when there was not very much bipartisan legislation passed at all in the United States. Another bill was passed called the Hydropower Improvement Act of 2013 to encourage expanded hydropower production in the United States. So it was introduced in the Senate. The bill removed licensing barriers for smaller hydropower development, and we would require a study on a streamlined permitting process at existing dams and pump storage projects. It passed the Senate in 2014. The Hydropower Regulatory Efficiency Act created a regulatory off-ramp from FERC permitting requirements for non-controversial hydro projects on existing conduits such as pipelines and canals, which are less than 5 megawatts. The other thing that happened was that we were the poster child for changing laws in the state of Colorado. The Colorado House of Representatives in 2014, a bill was passed, HB 141030, to streamline development of small hydropower in Colorado. And it passed, and it directs the Colorado Energy Office to facilitate the project review by Colorado state agencies in a timely manner. 60 days, which is pretty amazing, and for non-controversial small hydro projects. And House Bill 141030 also did something that was very important. It streamlined the electrical inspection process to hook up a plant by citing the National Electrical Code, NEC, standards so that electricians could be guided, that they could be guided by these new code standards when installing small hydro. And the electrical inspector will determine whether the installation meets the NEC standards to assure safe, quality, and code compliant installations. And of course, the San Juan County sent in the first application for an exemption in the state, and it was approved. And so we were able to hook up our hydro plant and use it ever since. And we work with, and that's our little hydro plant. Doesn't look at all like Hoover Dam, but anyway, we were able to hook up to San Miguel Power Company, which is our company, our power provider over in our part of over on our side of the hill. And we are generating about $1,300 a year, which is, and running the mill tour at the same time. One of the things that I'd like to also tell you and thank people are the funders and the builders of this plant. One was Telluride Energy. He was the designer of the plant. San Juan County, the Economic Development Administration, USDA, Gates Family Foundation, the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority, and the State Historical Fund. The people that built the plant were local contractors, Fulmer Construction and Silverton Electric and Electronic. One of the things that the Historical Society says as part of our mission is we buy local and we hire local. And so we were able to use our local people to do this. And it was not just two people, it was a whole crew replacing pipeline. And if you can go back to show off Dennis Kurtz, here's the inside of our little power plant with a huge electrical board. That's our local electrician. There's the top of the Pelton wheel. And that's the motor that runs and turns it into electricity there. So one of the really neat things about doing this project is that because of this, having been through this adventure, we feel that we have been part of the history of the hydropower industry in the San Juans by helping to make this really huge change in the law and making it easier for small hydro to develop all over the West, all over the United States. And we are part of the history of alternating current power history. And so anyway, these are the folks that helped us, and we always like to say thank you to all of them. So anyway, thank you for letting me come and talk.
All right. Great. Any questions? Let's first go ahead and type them into the Q&A, and we'll read them off to Bev. What a really wonderful story about how the past affects the present and the future here in the San Juans. You can either type questions in to the Q&A or raise your little hand and we'll let you unmute. And I'm watching, I don't see anything coming in. So in the meantime, we'll go to our shameless self-promotion. As Bev said, the San Juan County, Colorado Museum will open on Memorial Day weekend. It's hard to think about that, but it'll be here before we know it. But in the meantime, the archives are open generally on Thursdays, but call ahead, just make sure. They're open even in the winter, so if you have any research needs, they are there to help you. Here in Durango, we're open at the Animas Museum. We continue to be open on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 10 to 4, and on Wednesdays and Fridays from 1 to 4. So come on by. It's kind of quiet now that the holidays are over, so we'd love to see you. If you do have, when we have research hours, and we'd love it if you give us a call or give us an email ahead of time, and so we can prepare for any research needs that you might have. I'm watching for questions. Then otherwise, next month, join us on Saturday, February 8th at 1 p.m. for our second Saturday seminar series. Now, this is going to be in honor of Black History Month, and this is going to be kind of different. Composer Joseph C. Phillips Jr., who's a professor at Princeton University, will be joining us to talk about his latest work. It's an opera called Till Paths Be Wrought Through Wilds, um, in which he's looking at the theme of freedom and how it manifested in different meanings and ways in the Western United States. And the opera is set in the mountains of Southwest Colorado, read Durango, and focuses on the nexus between the Buffalo Soldiers, the Southern Ute Nation, Black, Mexican, Chinese, and white settlers in the region. We're kind of excited. Joe is going to be joining us back from New York, and his wife grew up in Durango, so that's his Durango connection. And he spent a lot of time here, over the past couple of years, and we worked with him this summer, as he was preparing to write this opera. So this is going to be kind of different and kind of fun. The program will be available on Zoom and streamed on the big screen in the classroom. And watch our website because we'll get a Zoom link so you can register for that in a couple days. We're finalizing our seminar plans for this year. So after February, in March, we're going to have Robert McDaniel again talking about one of his loves, and that's historic Native American pottery. And this time he's going to focus on Zuni pottery. So stay tuned for that. And then in April, believe it or not, we're thinking about April already. Ed Horvath is going to do a presentation, kind of like a John Fielder look at La Plata County then and now. So I think that one's going to be a lot of fun and a really good presentation. So again, these are all going to be posted on our website, and check out our website for more. Looking any questions come in? We got a good job, Bev. Little Silverton leads the way. All right. Thank you, Judy. Who have got a question? For Bev, it looks like you also repurposed an old railroad building to house the generator, preserving another piece of history in the process. Can you maybe talk about that?
Well, true, actually. It was a little railroad building that was built to house, well, I guess they were called galloping geese. They were rail buses, is what they were. And the geese were running on this Rio Grande Southern Railroad. And our little Casey Jones rail bus, which we still have and have painted it last year. That was the building that they stored that in. And those rail buses went up and were used. Oh, to take people who might have gotten hurt in the mine down to Silverton to go to the hospital and that sort of thing. So yeah, so that's fun to have that in a historic building too.
All right, we've got another wow. Thank you for this presentation, Bev. So interesting that the future is still being impacted by the past.
Right.
Here's another question. How often do you have to make repairs on the pipes for the hydro plant? And was that pipeline new or pre-existing, and how long did it take to build?
The original pipeline was installed in 1929, but the mill was being used as a mill, and so there were several mining companies during that period of time that owned the mill. Standard Metals Corporation ended up being the Sunnyside Gold Corporation. And they worked on the pipeline because they needed the water and because it was used during the way they processed the ore. And so a lot of it was in pretty good shape. But there was a lot of it that wasn't in very good shape. And so at least 1 mile of it was not in good shape. And that was part of our grant money, was to replace that. And how do we keep it in good shape? Well, we try to walk that pipe at least once a year, and we try to go up to the head gate and get it all cleaned out at least once a year. And probably, especially in the spring when there are avalanches up in that part of the mountain. So we try to do that too.
All right, I think hope we got that. Can you please restate the amount of monthly or yearly income the San Juan County Historical Society hydropower produces? And is that power sold to SMPA at wholesale or retail rates?
I don't know whether it's wholesale or retail, to tell you the truth. It makes us about $1,300 a year, which for a little bitty historical society that the only money we get is from our admissions and our book sales and our memberships. That's a chunk of change for us. And we sell it to San Miguel Power Association, and they write us a check.
Okay. And then we had another thank you for an interesting program. Good to see you as well. Okay, final check. And then we will head downstairs. I think we've got everything. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Bev, for coming down today. We're so glad to have you here. For everybody else to keep up with us, join us, either the La Plata County Historical Society or the San Juan County Historical Society. Members only for La Plata County get access to our online catalog database. And I know the San Juan County folks are planning something similar to be coming out soon. Visit our websites for more resources, subscribe to our e-blasts, follow us on Facebook, like us on Instagram. And if you do want to see continued programming like this, don't be afraid to hit that donate button on our website once in a while. We appreciate your support and thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks again.